Hi there. So I said the other day that I felt like something was brewing and I couldn't put my finger on it, and the pieces are starting to come together. And what I think is brewing is the end of this crazy train. Oh, yeah, because it's all just starting to come together in a way that is not going to go well for our dear Megsy. So I want to take you back. Yeah, just a little journey back. And thank you to TRG. She is the one that keeps this whole interview alive. And thank goodness for it, because we do not ever want to forget this. But I'm going to take you back to a little place, that time when Megsy was telling us all about how no one was willing to tell the truth to protect her.
Spoken, especially about women's rights. I mean, that's the sad irony of the last 4 years, is I've advocated for so long for women to use their voice, and then I was silent.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
The latter.
So how does that work? Were you told by the comms people or the institution, were you told to keep silent? How were you told to handle tabloids or gossip? Were you told to say nothing?
Everyone in my world was given very clear directive from the moment the world knew Harry and I were dating to always say no comment. So that's my friends, my mom and dad. We did.
Mm-hmm.
I did anything they told me to do. Of course I did, because it was also through the lens of, and we'll protect you. So even as things started to roll out in the media that I didn't see, but my friends would call me and say, Meg, this is really bad. Because I didn't see it, I'd go, don't worry, I'm being protected. I believed that. And I think that was really hard to reconcile, because it was only once we were married and everything started to really worsen that I came to understand that not only was I not being protected, but that they were willing to lie to protect other members of the family, but they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband.
Now, to me, that is one of the worst lies that Meghan tells in this entire Trainwreck interview. Not because it was, obviously we know that there were some real doozies in that. But the reason that one is the worst to me is because it's insidious. It calls into question everyone's integrity about everything and tries to save Meghan's, which we all know was a losing battle. But it's the one thing that puts the biggest doubt over any, or tried to. I understand it didn't succeed. But the attempt was to put doubt over everything that anybody in the royal family said about anything having to do with Meghan. The idea that at any point in time they were telling lies to protect others rather than protecting her with the truth. Well, Harry seems to have messed with the wrong woman, and my goodness, I could not love this woman more. And that is Dr. Sophie. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her last name correctly, so I'm not trying to be disrespectful in not saying her last name. I am more affectionately calling her Dr. Sophie because I just love this woman. Ask me, she is the one that is going to bring down this entire house of cards. And it's the little things that, my goodness, she gave a very diplomatic interview the other day. And yes, I still have my doubts about the things that were cut, but maybe we'll find out about them as time goes on. But she very diplomatically made some huge revelations. Let's start with one. And this, I made a short about it. If you've seen it already, I apologize, but this is important.
And so the choreography went badly on stage because we had too many people on stage. The international press captured this, and there was a lot of talk about the Duchess and the choreography on stage and whether she should have been there and her treatment of me. Prince Harry asked me to issue some sort of a statement in support of the Duchess, and I said I wouldn't. Not because I didn't care about the Duchess, but because I knew what would happen if I did so, number one. And number two, because we cannot be an extension of the Sussex.
What would have happened if you...
And that is the problem here. Because by that one statement, now we get to say to ourselves, well, if Harry went to Dr. Sophie and said, could you please, just make a statement in support of Meghan, then who else has made just like what Meghan tried to do to the royal family in that Oprah interview, Sophie much more masterfully did it in this interview. Because now we have to go back and now we get to say, well, what about this? I mean, do any of us now doubt that 100% the First Lady of Nigeria, again, I'm not saying their names, not out of disrespect, but because I'm terrible at pronouncing names, and I just don't want to mess it up. I'd rather not pronounce it incorrectly and say the First Lady of Nigeria, which is also an appropriate moniker for her, rather than mispronounce her last name. But actually, it was her first name that I struggled with. I think it's First Lady Tinubu. Now, do we at all doubt that Harry went to her and said, hey, could you please? Or if not Harry, in this case, who knows? It could have been Maureen Harriman. Or it could have been the guy who was kind of escorting them around. I forget his name. The guy who was escorting them around Nigeria. Someone went to her and said, as a favor to Meghan and Harry, could you make a statement? I have zero doubt. I mean, I always thought that happened in the first place, but now, thanks to Dr. Sophie, all doubt is removed, right? And there's more.
A Meghan y a Harry, pues los conocí en medios de comunicación, pero sobre todo vi la serie de Netflix sobre su vida, sobre su historia, y eso pues me conmovió y me motivó a decir, esta es una mujer que merece venir a nuestro país y contar su historia, y su intercambio sin dudas será un fortalecimiento a tantas mujeres en el mundo.
Do we doubt that the Vice President of Colombia was also pressured to say good things about Harry and Meghan, specifically Meghan Markle? And that as these faux royal tours unfolded, and there were these things that just didn't seem to add up. It looked like, she wasn't really getting along with Meghan. Looked like Meghan was being a little too forward with her husband. And yet she came out and she gave a statement protecting and defending Meghan. Why? Because she was pressured to do it. And this isn't even going into what we know very well was happening in, the social media space, where the Sussex Squad was out there issuing their threats. She was asked to do this. She was told to do this. I don't know which it is, but does it matter as long as it amounts to the same thing, which was, we now know she didn't really want to defend Meghan, or she at least did not do it of her own volition.
There's been an unbelievable amount of attention that has been placed on the Archwell Foundation. I'm here at a behavioral health site, a mental health site. Archwell Foundation, run by Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, do extraordinary work, particularly women and girls, but notably around mental health. And I just want folks to know, not only are they in compliance, it was a technical paperwork issue that was wildly over hyped. And with respect, I hope people that ran those headlines run this headline, that it was a very typical technical issue around paperwork that persists for so many others as well, and they're in full compliance, and they're a celebrated organization that does great work in the state of California. So I wanted to clarify that because that's important, and I just thought there was a little bit of a piling on that was deeply unfair to that charity.
Now, the day that this happened, I came out and I said, this is unprecedented. And people said, oh, what's the big deal? He just went, no, this was huge. He was a state governor at an event that had nothing to do with Harry and Meghan, and where he was not asked about Harry and Meghan. He was being asked questions about the charity that he was there, Treatment Not Tense, the charity that he was there supporting, and he brought up Harry and Meghan. And he is a state governor coming out in defense of a private citizen and a royal prince in a press conference. This was unprecedented. This was huge. This was a huge ethical breach. And at the time, I had wondered, is this Getty's image? Because Getty supports Gavin Newsom. Was this Getty's influence? Remember, we had once seen reports of Meghan speaking with Getty, and everyone said, oh, she trying to, she doing the gold digger thing? Is she trying to get her hands on another, someone who's worth more than Harry? I said, no, this is a political thing. She wants to have this political ally in her back pocket. I also think she wants eventually to run for political office, and probably the lunatic probably still thinks she can. But she probably called and said, hey, do this for me. Remember, we saw her on the phone as she's leaving the plane coming back from Nigeria, and 2 days later he comes out and he says this. It was an unprecedented thing for him to do, and a huge ethical breach, and this was done because someone asked him to, and someone pressured him to do this. No doubt in my mind anymore. In my opinion, this is just the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot more in this interview. Now, I'm going to go through a few things, and these are the things that have been hitting me ever since I saw this interview. What was it? Late last night. And just things are coming back to me as I look back over the interview, and I keep catching more. It's like a bunch of Easter eggs within this one video, where each time I watch it, I realize how much more this woman is saying. She's absolutely brilliant at it too. And she's likable. She's personable. She's clearly sincere. I mean, this woman is going to bring down this house of cards. I swear it.
Now, I'm going to answer this very frankly, but I just want to say normally I wouldn't want to discuss family business in this way in an open forum. But here we are, and I'll do my best to be frank in my disclosure.
This woman is very intelligent, and she is not going to start out this interview with something that's a throwaway. So right there off the bat, this is something that's important to her. But what family is she talking about? I mean, I've listened to the whole interview, and at first, you don't know what family she's talking about. I mean, is she talking about her family? Is she talking about, family in the context of, the African family, the Santabali family? What family is she talking about? Well, I think I know. And I think that this is one of the things that she gives away in this interview.
So when I arrived in July in 2023, of course, the first thing you do is you open the annual report, you look at the board minutes to see what it is that's going on in the organization. When you look at the I did a 7-year historical review of the financials, looking at our costs and looking at our revenues, so income. It was pretty obvious to me that we had lost quite a number of corporate sponsors, we'd lost some families, and we'd lost individuals who were donating to the organization. And there was quite a significant correlation between the time the organization started to see a departure of sort of major organizations and Prince Harry's departure from the UK itself. When you look at the board minutes, though, there is no discussion about what's happening with respect to some of our most significant funders. And then when you discuss with the senior executive team and ask why there isn't a conversation about this, the answer is it's really difficult to have this conversation because the instruction was it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with Prince Harry in the room.
Now, she says this right after her opening conversation alluding to the family. And then she starts talking about corporate sponsors. But then she says families, major donors, and major organizations. And it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with Harry in the room right after he left the UK. Now, to me, the sponsor that she's talking about, the donors that she's talking about, the royal family pulled out of donating to Santabali. They stopped contributing to Santabali. And I'm not talking about contributing in any sort of corrupt way. I am saying the royal family donates money to multiple charitable organizations, especially ones that anybody in the family is a patron of. But what she's saying is that from the time Harry left the UK, the royal family was no longer donating money to Santabali or individuals within the family. I mean, my guess is at that point in time, absolutely William and Catherine stopped donating money. As far as who else may have stopped, I don't know. But that's what would explain why it was an uncomfortable conversation to have with Harry. Why are they having the conversation with Harry? What does it have to do with Harry? Well, because it's his family that stopped donating. And so that's why he's the one that they would go to have this conversation, or that's why he would be involved in any way with the conversation. And that's why they weren't allowed to discuss it. And here, she's sitting here saying, and you can imagine that any sort of a donation from the royal family would have been considerable. And she's saying, hey, guys, this is huge. How are we accommodating it? How are we getting around it? How are we raising funds in place of it? What are we doing about that? And that's when, she was told you can't talk about that around Harry. I hope I'm explaining it right. But to me, that was a very significant tell. She told us a lot of information in that one little thing. Now, when she starts talking about the venue,
We were so fortunate to have the opportunity to do a polo challenge in Miami last year in April. We had a very generous family that was happy for us to use their polo grounds at a material discount. And then about a month before the event was about to take place, Prince Harry called the team and said, I'm doing a Netflix show, and I would love to bring a camera crew so that I can include some footage in this show. And so the team called me and tell me, oh, Prince Harry's made this request, so we're doing the things. I said, you can't be doing the things without seeking consent from the property owners, the sponsors, all the guests. Nobody signed up into being on a Netflix show. And so we have this discussion about the need to talk to everybody. We come up with draft agreements. And of course, the venue owner says this is now a commercial undertaking. So here are my terms. We couldn't afford it. So now we lost the venue. So we went to another venue, And we were lucky enough that through Prince Harry's connections, actually, and a friend of his, there was another family that was prepared to host. The show went on, but there was a lot of disruption, right? A lot of people were unhappy because we'd worked on this for months. At the actual, on the actual day, we had Prince Harry, which is always wonderful. The Duchess decided to attend, but she told us she wasn't attending. And she brought a friend, a very famous friend. So you can imagine all of the activity that goes with these additional amazing people. We're excited about it. We would have been really excited had we known ahead of time, but we didn't. And so the choreography went badly.
I will be looking a little bit more into this. I hope to find out a little bit more of the ins and outs. As far as I have been able to figure thus far, I'm still early looking. In 2022, the Centobale Polo Cup was at a place called the International Sports Promotion Handa. It's a Japanese company. So my guess is that that was likely the original venue that the second one was going to be at. This one, I believe this was 2024? So I believe that was where this was going to be, because she indicated that it was somewhere they had been in the past. And it is a family-run organization run by a Japanese family. So I believe that was where it was originally, and I perfectly understand that once it became a business venture, it was no longer just a charitable event. They deserved a cut of it. Once Netflix got involved, it caused problems. Now, part of this, I'm actually going to give Harry a little bit of a quote-unquote pass. Not really, but sort of. I would imagine that a lot of these technicalities that, we're just going to, when it comes to Invictus, that's all done. That was all done ahead of time for Harry. He didn't need to arrange a lot of that, is my guess. That when he was with the royal family, these were the things. It was always, there were always TV cameras and whatnot there, because this was always how things were done with the royal family, and he had people to take care of that for him. And as far as he knew, it was just, give him a call. Hey, yeah, I'm going to bring my film crew. Now that he's in charge of it, or now that he's doing the deals and the contractual aspect of it, that's when he's getting into problems, because he doesn't realize that there's more to it than just calling and saying, hey, I'm bringing my crew. So that's part of it. The other thing is that with this, on the Centobale website, there's obviously no question on how it is that they managed to find another venue. And that venue was very clearly provided and potentially subsidized by Nacho. Obviously, he's then involved in that ridiculous polo shit show that Netflix did. So clearly, we know some of the quote-unquote families involved. Interesting that when Dr. Sophie was talking about Meghan showed up and brought a friend who was very famous. Well, are they talking about what's her name? Nacho's wife? Are they talking about her? Because Delfina would have been connected to Nacho, so why would that have been? Do you know what I'm saying? That wouldn't have really been Meghan's friend. That would have been Nacho's wife. And if he had been such a big contributor, obviously his wife was likely to be there. So I wonder what all else is behind that, what Sophie's saying. Maybe in time we will learn more. But I think it's very interesting that this is now on the Centobale website. When you go there and search the Polo Cup, you see the photo of Nacho. So clearly we know who it was that contributed for that replacement venue. I think it's interesting that a lot of the cuts that I saw in the presentation, a lot of the cuts that I saw were around discussion of net flops. So I don't know if maybe that has something to do with why they had to cut some things. Do you see what I'm saying? Whether or not that played into the whole decision and whatnot.
Absolutely. Centobale has had a future We must stop infantilizing Sintebale. Sintebale is 19 years old. Sintebale is here because of the people in Africa who do the work every single day.
Now, surely I can't be the only one that got the impression that when she said, stop infantilizing Sintebale, there was a part of her that was also saying, stop infantilizing Prince Harry and make him accountable for his behavior. I mean, that's just my guess. That's just my feeling. Maybe that's just my hope. But I definitely got the impression. And, of course, in true Prince Harry and Meghan Markle fashion, they've, of course, clapped back already. Prince Harry accused of harassment and bullying at scale by Sintebale chair Dr. Sophie. A source close to the former trustees of the Sintebale charity has described Dr. Sophie's claims as completely baseless. So, of course, and I'm not even going to give this oxygen because I have no doubt that everything that she said is honest and truthful. And I really firmly believe that this woman could care less about the whole nonsense with Megxie on the trophy. This woman is so far beyond Megxie. She's so far out of Megxie's league that I don't think she could care less about any of that. That's just my opinion, though. That's the way she comes off to me. I believe every word that she has said. So maybe, that's coloring my judgment of her. But I really don't think she could care less about Meggie and a trophy. But before we finish out today, there is some interesting bit of news. And the fact that this is coming out in the midst of all the rest, this is why I'm saying it's a house of cards that's on its way tumbling down. Because, again, if you go back and watch, my videos on the York Files, where I talk about who I believe is the mouthpiece of the Yorks, I gotta say, what is it? Look over here. Don't look over there. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit nervous to even discuss this. So I'm just going to put this here. You can pause, you can read, and you can further research this. Because this scares the crap out of me. And we'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it at the York Files video. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And this. Enough said. Now, there is a lot more to the interview. I'm not done going over the whole thing and kind of, analyzing it beyond just watching it, and analyzing where I see those splices coming in and what I think might be in those spliced parts that are now on a cutting room floor. But these are all things that are moving. Things are moving. Things are moving fast. And I definitely think that this is the time to get the popcorn out. Like I said to Babsy Babe, I'm going out to buy my dried Indian corn and my truffle oil to make my truffle oil popcorn to watch this show because I think it's about to get really good, folks. I really do. And honestly, this might actually be more than I ever thought it would because for a long time I've been starting to really believe that everything was just going to get swept under the rug and Megxie was going to eventually just kind of fade away. This is a lot better than I thought. I think there might actually be some exposure and some truths finally told. So, here's another question for you. Wouldn't you think that the Markles would be out and about gloating over, the eventual, exposure of Megxie? But no, they're quiet. Maybe because they only come out when Meghan needs to be brought back into the news. When she's already there, they're not really needed. I would love to hear, what Samantha has to say about all of this because, she's an expert on everything. So surely she must have some insights. No? Yeah, they're strangely quiet, aren't they? Things that make you go, Let me know what you think. I can't wait to read your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for listening. If you could, please remember to like and to share. I mean, again, you guys know, I've been seeing that ever since I started questioning YouTube about the fact that my stats don't quite math. I do believe that they have been undoing some of that because I've been getting all these views and all these subs that, heretofore were just completely absent. I mean, I think I got 4,000 subs overnight. Twitch. Oh, really? But they didn't watch anything. So it's all very curious. You would be absolutely flabbergasted by the things that YouTube has decided are restricted because they are election coverage. Things like a discussion of Jackie Kennedy's pink Chanel suit. Yes, that's considered election coverage. And the video, Meet the Markles, where that girl Amelia from the UK goes through and interviews the Markles and stuff like that. Well, that, because it has a very brief clip where she's at a Tea Party rally in Florida for the 2018. So it would have been for the 2020 election. They decided that was election coverage also. So it must be neat that I am influencing elections and doing election coverage in my time machine. Especially since, hey, you know what? The 2024 election, even that one's over. So maybe I'm going into the future and planning for future elections with Jackie Kennedy, of course. So I do believe that there is still a little bit of shadow banning going on. So if you could just like and share, spread the word, I'd really appreciate it. It'd be doing a great service for me, a great favor. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day filled with love, laughter, popcorn, and some dancing.
Dancing